Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Hey there folks, and welcome to this week's Rambling. And again, well, once again, there's not been a huge amount piquing my interest in the world of gaming, so this Rambling will be more about just what I kind of got up to. Well, two things significantly, and I may suddenly decide of something else to say, you know what I'm like. But the two things I wanted to talk about were The Walking Dead, which I have been watching, not playing. Talking about The Walking Dead, the TV show, and also the fact that I stumbled across Star Trek Online, which I didn't even know was a thing until I stumbled across it in the PlayStation Store. So I'll talk a little bit about both of them, or a lot about both of them, depending on how I get on, I suppose. So first off, The Walking Dead. Now, if you've not seen The Walking Dead, please don't watch this. Because I am going to talk about everything that I've seen. So if you are, like me, going to arrive late to that game and you haven't watched them all yet, or you're not up to speed, I've got to halfway through the latest season 6. The new season 7, is starting in October. And I had waited for... So before I blab on, please, if you don't want any spoilers, then please don't watch this, okay? So just go away now and come back to the next vlog. I love you, but go away, because I don't want to ruin it for you if you do plan to watch it. So it's a spoilerific chit-chat. However, I would say to anyone that may put something in the comments, I haven't finished season 6, so don't tell me what happens. I'm only halfway through it. So I waited on purpose to watch The Walking Dead, because I wanted to save it for when I got my own pad again and moved and settled, and I really wanted to enjoy it. My son told me how good it was as he was watching. I did the same thing with Game of Thrones. I didn't watch... Well, I had seen one series of Game of Thrones before I moved, and then I waited until I'd moved to watch the rest of them. So The Walking Dead was kept as a thing to look forward to when I finally bought my flat. So and then when I bought my flat, I couldn't find it anywhere. So I had to wait this long from between April and now. Well, beginning of April I moved into the flat, and 31st of March if we're going to be precise. And I just couldn't find it anywhere. And eventually Now TV have put it back up as a box set, seasons 1 to 6, because they obviously want to get folk back into it before season 7 arrives. So hence my journey 2 weeks ago began when I started watching them. So I've got through 6 seasons, which is about 86 episodes. Well, I haven't finished the last season, but so 80 episodes maybe in a couple of weeks. So I've been binge watching that, and it's been so addictive. It's so good. And it really, it is just like Game of Thrones. No character is safe. Other than one. It does suffer a slight Jack Bauer syndrome. The main character, you never feel like he's going to die. He's... And I think it's the same in the comics. I think he is, the dude. So I'm not sure that he's ever going to die. And don't tell me if you know that he does, because I don't want to know. But there is the Jack Bauer syndrome there. You do feel that's the one character that will never go. But from the first season to now, I think there's only 4 characters left from the original episodes. So they're not shy in clearing the decks of people or killing off people that you've grown to love, or and I'm assuming this is all story related, and it's not because these actors have got other things to do. There's a few characters that I've really missed. I mean, I watched the first season and it was really good. It was short. I think there was only about 6 or 8 episodes in the first season. It was really short. Obviously, at that point, they didn't know how well it was going to go. And Rick's character, who is the main guy, it's Rick Grimes, is it? Rick Grimes, I think. And he's like a sheriff, and is it a sheriff or a patrol car? Well, he's a sheriff, I think. I think he's a sheriff. Him and his partner in the car and all this malarkey, and you get a few flashbacks to that as well, as to what happens. But the whole thing starts almost like the whole... Well, this was something I saw in... oh God, I'm having a mind blank again. It was one of those really old ones where the plants all came to life. Can't remember what it was called now. What was it called? It'll come back to me in a minute. But it was one of those where the guy, Rick's character, gets shot effectively in the first episode just on a random sort of stopping some criminals in cars, and then he ends up in hospital in a coma, and then kind of snaps out of the coma. When he snaps out of it, everything, it's like 28 days later, but that was the one I was going to say first. But actually, it was the same thing with the one with the plants and everything. It'll come back to me in a minute. But that whole thing where they wake up and it's just there's nobody there. The hospital, like the flowers next to them, are completely dried up, and they did it really cleverly because there's like a scene where he's almost like they filmed it almost like he can recognize snips of people coming in, but he's not awake. He's just kind of. So there's this moment where the guy, his partner, comes in with these flowers that someone else has sent for him, and he puts them down and stuff. But when Rick actually wakes up, he thinks that's like a few minutes later, and he's going, "Where are you? Where are you? You in the toilet or what?" And then he realizes that something's wrong because the plants are all like dried up and shriveled, and nobody's answering. Everything's dirty. It was really, really, really well done. And from that point on, you're pretty much hooked. I mean, that whole scene of him sort of when he realizes, like, he pushes the door open and there's just mess and chaos all over the hospital. I mean, he's freaking like he explains it later as like he just thought he was in a nightmare and he was going to wake up at some point because it was just that dreamlike. And you really felt it. I mean, that scene was absolutely fantastic. That whole first two episodes where that all happened. Well, that first episode, by the second episode, he kind of got it. And the character there's 5 characters still alive, isn't there? Because the guy who helps him is still going at this point where I am. So, yeah, I was really impressed with the way that they did that opening scene, even though that kind of scene had been done before. It was really impressive that Day of the Triffids. Just remembered. Just bumped my mic. Got excited. Day of the Triffids. That was the first time I saw that kind of thing happening. Because the guy... I don't think the guy was in a... In Day of the Triffids, the guy's in the hospital, but everybody else looks at the stars and everything when the things fall from the sky, and it blinds them all, and it makes them then easy targets for the plants when they come to life. But the guy who wakes up in the hospital has had his eyes covered. I don't think he was in a coma. I think he just couldn't look at the stars. So when he sort of wakes up, it's all chaos and stuff. So probably the closest match to that scene is 28 days later when the guy wakes up in the hospital. But I think, to be fair to this show, it probably did it better. So anyway, so that aside, that was what gripped me. I was straight in there, and you immediately realise that he's like, where's my wife? Where's my son? Where's my, where is everybody? But most importantly, where are those 2 people? So that's where it all starts, and he goes looking for them. And to be fair to the show, they don't linger on that so far as he doesn't, you don't get 3 series worth of him trying to find them. He finds them pretty quickly, and his mate's taking care of them, as you well know. So that's where the group sort of starts, because they all end up at that camp, because when he in his journey trying to find out what's going on, he bumps into people from their camp and then ends up helping them out of a bad mess, and then walks into the camp and they're like, holy shit, he's still alive. Because they were convinced he was dead. I mean, why his partner thought he was dead all kind of comes to life as well later on, because he genuinely was in a tight spot. I mean, it was like there was no way he was going to get Rick out of there. He was still on the life support machine. He put his ears to his chest. He couldn't hear anything. He was convinced he died. So there is a bit of a burden put on him, so far as like he's made to be a kind of a shit for leaving him there. But really, the options, there were none. He did actually the best thing he could do, which was just leave him, block the door, and get out of there. And he couldn't hear a heartbeat or whatever and thought he was dead. But it's interesting how they did the 2 characters, because they both had the same job. But how their morality works out through the show is completely different. Like Rick, although Rick becomes the baddest ass out there, he has a conscience still. There are things that there's lines he won't cross unless there's a reason to cross them. And even when he does cross them, he kind of steps back, or nearly crosses them, he steps back and thinks, no, wait a minute, we need to rethink. And that's for the detriment sometimes. Sometimes it puts them in danger, and sometimes... But the whole concept of this show is really about how we keep the human part of ourselves when the world turns like that. And it's his group that constantly survive because they keep that humanity about themselves. They care about each other. They care about what happens to each other. And that's the extra strength that they have that most of the other groups don't have. And that's why they come out of it. Well, that's why Rick comes out of it so well. So it's really, really good. I mean, I just... There are a few characters I wish they hadn't been so keen to kill off that I kind of wasn't that bothered about initially, but then they grew into really strong characters, and Beth was one of them, the blonde girl, the sister of Maggie, who's Glenn's wife. And obviously they came together at the farm, Herschel's farm, in season 3. Was that season 3? Changes location each season, really. So... And Herschel as well. I wish they'd hung on to Herschel a bit longer. But I understand why they went with the Herschel move, because it was all to do with the one-eyed Bry. Or the governor, as he was called before that. His story, I mean, with every series in America, they always have this want to do either a flashback or an episode that has nothing to do with the main character so much as it's more about a side character they met in the way and all this sort of stuff. And things like Lost tried to do that and then messed it up because people were like, this isn't telling us anything. This is filler. You know, this is a character that isn't connected at all that you're telling us a story about. And they learned that lesson pretty quickly, and that's when they decided to shut Lost down after season 6 or whatever it was. So they set to a tight story after that because people started complaining. But this doesn't suffer from that, because every time I felt like they were going to do a filler episode like that, it isn't really a filler episode, because it is telling you a story of why and how this person pitched up in the previous episode. Like, how did the guy that helped him right at the beginning and be such a mess when he met him in season 3 or whatever it was again, and he was totally lost his mind. And then he appears again, but he seems totally sane and with it, and he's got these new sort of taekwondo. Is it taekwondo? No, not taekwondo. Something with sort of martial art type moves with a pole and all that. So it kind of explains how he's got there, and there's a few stories like that. One of in fact, the story with the governor, and I'm forgetting the actor's name now. He's a great British actor, but the governor, and he became called Brian. But he was the head of another camp, as you remember. And he wasn't a good man at all. And this sort of conflict comes between his camp and Rick's camp. Now, his story after he lost that battle with Rick's camp, and the big attack on the prison and everything, although the prison fell, Rick's team actually came out of it, and his didn't. He ended up with nothing. In fact, the two people that he's left with, you find out through this story that they just dump him on the side of the road. At a campsite, he wakes up and they've gone because he's just lost everything, and there's no benefit to being with him anymore, so they just leave him there. So there's this sort of I think it was 2 episodes where you actually just see him drifting, becoming nothing. He's got nothing to care for. He doesn't care about anything, and ends up getting taken in by this family that have been hiding since it all kicked off in this sort of set of flats. And it was interesting to see that he got his morality back and just as quickly then became nasty again, because the minute he cared about something, the guy who was nasty in any way to anyone other than that group came back, and and that's what destroyed him in the first place. So he could never find the balance of protecting his own in a way that they would survive. He thought the only way that they could survive was by killing, destroying, grabbing, taking from everybody else, and that is what failed him in the end. So Rick's group won't do that. They won't raid other camps or, all that sort of stuff. So it's been really interesting watching it, because it's not just a show that's killing zombies. In fact, the zombies are kind of the side point, really. I mean, there's major moments with them, and especially in season 5 and 6. I mean, when I got to see tail end of season 5 and beginning of season 6, it was I've never seen anything. I've never seen so many zombies on screen in my whole life. It's just ridiculous. It was brilliant, though. It was like, holy fuckaroo, how many are there? How are they going to get out of this? So it was really like, that was a really good Uber thing to see at the end of 5 and beginning of 6, and it's carried on through to right where I am now. It's only the last episode that calmed down a little bit, but in the main part, it is about the danger of other humans. It's not about the danger of the infected. It's like, or the dead in this case. And the likes of The Last of Us, it's the infected, and the infected are the ones they worry about the least, because it's the gangs that have clubbed together that are more likely to do you damage, because at least you know what to expect from the infected in that game, or the undead in The Walking Dead. So I love things like that. I love tales that kind of explore that morality, because the society we live in, I think the reason that people grab onto these things and love post-apocalyptic type worlds, they're always a big winner if it's done well. And it's because people know that the societies we live in are very fragile. You know, it wouldn't take a huge amount for societies to fall. It still happens in the world. You know, it happened in Yugoslavia and all these sorts of places that should have been strong European countries. It still happens. And war breaks out and it's chaos. You know, and we're very lucky in in most of Europe and America and all the countries that have democracies. We're very, very lucky to have a very stable society, but there's huge parts of the world that are still extremely unstable and have constant war within them. So, and I think people also feel very tied to the social aspects of the world we live in as well. So I think people like this idea of being part of a lesser group. So, you know, having a purpose in life and being part of a group where you have a role, a purpose, and something to, you know, something other than just the day-to-day drim dram of what we do now, which is just your average job or whatever. You know, I think there's a part of everybody that would love to think they're the guy that, or the girl that could be a key member of a team like that when the chips fall or the shit hits the fan. You know, I think that's what it is. I think there's a part of us all that wants to. Well, I don't think we really want it. I think there's a part of us that would all want to just see what it was like and see if we, you know, would a world like that be better, where we get to start afresh, where we get to build again, where we get to learn new things again. We, you know, part of the show has been all about, like, I need to teach this to you, you're going to teach it to your son, and that's how it's going to carry on. Because once you've, you know, looted all the loot out there, you're going to have to start making stuff. You're going to have to start planting crops. You're going to have to start building things. You're going to have to start, you know, so all of these things start getting talked about. And you have to start sharing knowledge, you have to start trading, you have to start, you know, money is pointless. What's money? Money is nothing. I mean, it's a piece of paper that says I owe you something. So it all comes back to, here's some potatoes, here's some tomatoes, give us a gun. And that's what life was like way, way back when. And that's how communities got on with each other. But now we just shuffle pieces of paper around. I think I've slid off track slightly, as I do. So there you are. I think Beth and Herschel are probably the two characters I'm sort of missing the most. And I'm trying to think of anyone else. I mean, each character that was lost was sad at the time. And, well, Rick's wife, to be fair, I still think that happened a bit early, but I understand why they did it with the baby and everything. I think they wanted to have the baby was always kind of like, well, a motherless baby is always kind of fragile anyway, so it's to put that extra pressure on Rick and the son and the people around them to take care of this baby that, you know. So I think I understand why they did it, but I still think it was a little bit early for her to go, because she was a great strong character, and part of Rick's will to do everything was her and the son. So there you are. So yeah, so I've got the end of season 6 to watch, and I shall. Well, I can only assume it's going to end on a massive cliffhanger. And I'm going to be really annoyed because up until this point, when you're binge watching, you can just go straight into the next season and go for it. And this time around, I'm going to have to wait week by week like everyone else, which is what happened with Game of Thrones as well. So there you are. So that was my journey with The Walking Dead over the last couple of weeks. And Yeah, I mean, just a brief one on Star Trek Online. I didn't even know this was a thing. It's a free to play thing. You can get, it was a PC game, I believe, and you can now get it on the PlayStation Store. I think probably the best way for me to try and share a bit of Star Trek Online is to maybe film a couple of Let's Play episodes and throw them up, and just let you see what it's like. I mean, the graphics are criminal. I mean, they're just, well, they're not. That's a bit unfair. They're not. They're clearly older graphics. I mean, they weren't built for Uber machines. But when I first put it on, I thought, oh god, this is awful. You know, you're running around as this character, and it felt a bit clumsy, and it wasn't over. You know, it wasn't. But bearing in mind what we're used to now with this gen, it's like, you know, it doesn't hold up well visually as a person running around an area. However, it does hold up pretty well when you get into the starships and you're doing space battles and stuff like that. But the thing is, the whole thing actually feels fine once you start playing it. And if you understand that it's not going to be the greatest visual experience in the world, it's actually got a really good core to it. It's got a really good mechanic. You can design and build your own character. It's an MMO, so you can play with other people, and you can decide whether you're a Klingon or a Starfleet officer or another type of alien. There's loads of different alien races in there, and it just gives you mission after mission to do, and you go off, and sometimes you're beaming down to planets and you're fighting in space. I mean, there was an opening scene where we were fighting some Klingons, and there was beaming here, then going back to the ship, doing some space fights in the ship, and then doing some shooting on foot. So it's nice that you can beam down and, you know, do all that sort of stuff, and it's pretty guided at the minute, so I'm not sort of wandering aimlessly. And there was some Borg spheres appeared, so the Borg appeared really quickly. And, you know, the Borg spheres were like, oh, cool, you know. And then toward the tail end of it, it said, right, hold position, and you're fighting these spheres. And then this massive Borg cube arrives, which is just insanely huge. Like, our ships are like this size, and this cube's like massive. And all these Starfleet ships are shooting at this cube, trying to take it down. It was really, really cool. I mean, it actually feels like you're just playing in episodes of Star Trek Voyager or Star Trek, you know, Generations or Next Generation or whatever. So I honestly, from the first 20 minutes, I was like, I'm not sure about this. And then 4 hours later, I was still playing it. And then I played it the following day as well, and I'll probably play it over the weekend. I will try and record some for you. I won't dig out someone else's gameplay. I'll try and record some and put some up as some Let's Plays. So if you haven't tried it, it's free to play, so just go and download it and try it out. I haven't spent any money on that game. I've just started playing it. I'm sure you can purchase stuff in-game, but I haven't found the need to do that yet. It also has a huge mechanic for upgrading kit. You find loot all over the place, and you can upgrade stuff with it. It's got a replicator system where you can build stuff and sell it to get the money to buy more stuff, you know. So it's got really good mechanics inside it, so far as I can tell. I haven't really got deep enough into it to see how far down the rabbit hole goes, Neo. But we'll see how we go. I got really, really addicted over the 2 days, so without any doubt. I don't know whether the fighting will become slightly repetitive, but it just feels... I mean, it is literally like a few buttons of pressing and a couple of cooldowns and blah, but I haven't got many moves yet either, so we'll see. We'll see if it gets a bit more interesting as we go. You can also upgrade your starships and change them, and I think you can build fleets of starships and all that sort of stuff as well, which I haven't got to yet. So there's loads and loads to do in it. So if you're looking for something to fill your time with and you like a bit of Star Trek, then absolutely give it a go. I think it's just on the PS4, but you could check it out on Xbox. I don't know that for a fact, but it certainly was pushed out as Star Trek PS4. Whether the Star Trek Xbox One, I'm not sure online. So there you are, folks. That is my rambling for this week. As I say, there wasn't much sort of piquing my interest to do with gaming at all, and The Walking Dead was only halted in its tracks by the fact that I got suddenly addicted to Star Trek Online. So I haven't watched The Walking Dead for 2 days, which is just unheard of, people. So I shall finish The Walking Dead this weekend. I'm going to go and enjoy a couple of Millers, and I hope your weekends are enjoyable as well. Let me know in the comments below whether or not you've watched The Walking Dead, if you've loved it as much as I have, and if you're looking forward to Season 7. Remember, don't tell me about the end of Season 6. I'm only halfway through it. And let me know if you've tried Star Trek Online, or if you were thinking about it, and I shall post some of that footage up soon. It has been an honour and a privilege serving for you again, and I shall see you next time, folks. Take it easy. Bye.